Well, it's the first official day back in Congress, and wouldn't you know it, the Democrats have leaked information about Donald Trump's name coming up in 3 emails. Out of hundreds of thousands of emails, 3. I want to go through this. I want to go through the upcoming elections with Dr. Jerome Corsi. Dr. Corsi, thank you for joining me.
Always a great pleasure, Stephen. Thank you.
So I knew that this was going to happen. Democrats pretended this entire shutdown was Donald Trump trying to hide his name in the Jeffrey Epstein files, that he was complicit in trafficking young girls and dirty, perverted stuff. Now, on their first real day back to work, they leak 3 emails that have Donald Trump's name in it. Democrats are now saying he must resign, the American people should be in the streets protesting, and that they will impeach him. What are your thoughts on this Jeffrey Epstein stuff? And then I want to actually look at the emails with you.
Well, first of all, the Democrats have no real policy whatsoever that's going to appeal to the American people. And they have no game plan that's going to be, their game plan is Mondami and Hamas and supporting Venezuelan drug dealers. They don't have much in common with the American people. So they're desperate. And they also know what's coming. And what's coming is what we're going to explain through the course of this show is there's a lot of grand juries now that are working hard. There's going to be indictments. And I think that Trump is on the warpath now to make sure we get fair elections, especially after the last 3 elections with Mondami in New York and the gubernatorial races, both in New Jersey and Virginia. So I think that the Democrats are playing the last cards they've got, and they're pretty desperate. I don't think they're going to make the impact the Democrats think they will make, but let's look at the emails.
Okay. Yeah, and I agree with you. There's a lot that's about to happen. We've got these grand juries that are now being made public in the state of Florida. So, the more that Adam Schiff realizes he's going to be in trouble for fraud, the more he's going to say Epstein, 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 right? So, but let's just go through these for the sake of the audience, because there's not a lot of meat on these bones, right? So this is Ed Cranston, a rabid Trump hater over on X. He says that, Trump is guilty, that he's sick. But when you start actually digging into these emails, you've got Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, right? And they say, I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Redacted, spent hours at my home with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief. Then we head over to another one. Victim at Mar-a-Lago. Trump said he asked me to resign. Never a member ever. Of course, he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop. And then lastly, I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or the house, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you. Or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt. Of course, it is possible. When asked, he'll say, Jeffrey is a great guy and has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in a Trump regime. So right away, as I'm reading these, Dr. Corsi, my first thought is, this sounds like blackmail, which is what Jeffrey Epstein was allegedly doing. On top of that, right here, the girls they're talking about at Mar-a-Lago, Trump's already come out with this story and said, I found out that Epstein was poaching my employees and being a pervert. And so I kicked him out and never allowed him back. And it says right here that he had asked Ghislaine Maxwell to stop. So again, as you mentioned earlier, they've been holding these back. They've been building this narrative for 41 days and boom, they drop it. And really, this is what you have? A blackmail scheme that they admit in email. Trump asking Epstein to leave and to quit talking to his employees, and her admitting that Ghislaine had been asked multiple times by Trump to stop. Your thoughts on these emails?
Well, first of all, Trump knew what Epstein was doing. Everybody knew what, anybody who was in the know knew what Epstein was doing. He was trading on young girls, pedophiles, to men who were looking for sexual adventure and were oblivious to the fact they were being blackmailed because they were being filmed. Well, Donald Trump was smart enough to see through the whole plot. He wasn't going to participate. Besides, these aren't the kind of women Donald Trump has been attracted to. I mean, I've known Donald Trump for 45 years, and I can tell you, I have never seen him with the kind of women that, Epstein reputedly traded in. Donald Trump's women were mature adult women who were model quality beauties, and usually international, with some flair to them or other. And yes, he may have ridden on the Epstein airplane, but he wasn't participating in the Epstein sexual adventures. Had that been the case, that would have been out day one in 2016. They're coming out now in 2025 at the end of the year. It's just a non-story. It's even worse than a Hail Mary. This is a desperate attempt to find something that will stick to create traction for the Democrats in their badly losing narrative.
Yeah. It's interesting. The only Republican that seems to believe this or pretend to believe it is Congressman Thomas Massie, who Trump has said, we're going to primary you because you keep voting against me and the MAGA agenda. So I don't know whether he actually really believes that. I used to really like Thomas Massie, but you're right. Trump's first wife was his age.
Right.
His second wife was his age, and Melania was in her 30s. And in fact, during a very crass interview with Howard Stern on live radio, they were talking about Paris Hilton's sex tape. He said, yes, I'm aware of it. Melania brought it to my attention. He said, did you watch it? Did you think she was sexy? He said, I've never been into young girls, right? He says it right there. So I think you're right. I think they're trying to say, because you guys ran in the same circles, you must have been best friends, and you must have been, because you had the Playboy lifestyle and the money, you must have been a pervert. But 3 of Epstein's lawyers have publicly stated, after reviewing everything, defending him for his weirdo crimes, that Trump's name was never brought up, never in any of the documents, never in any of the business dealings. So I don't know, your thoughts on all of that.
Well, Trump was a celebrity himself in those years. And of course, they knew each other in New York, and there was some times they were together. It does not mean that Trump partook of the sexual favors that Epstein was doling out. Trump could see through that in about 20 seconds. Trump is not going to be caught in one of these bribery schemes without being aware that he's being lured into one. And so therefore the whole story is not credible. It's a desperate attempt by a party that has lost its way to find some dirt that might catch against Donald Trump. And all the dirt that's been found about Donald Trump, from the Billy Budd tapes and all the rest of it, and grabbing women and everything else that came out, Trump has gotten past, because Trump's fundamental character, and he has, I think, changed and deepened in this, his belief in God, his devotion to the country, his determination to put America back on track of make America great again. These are themes that I think override everything else in Donald Trump's life. And the Epstein affair is unfortunate, but it was not central to who Donald Trump is. And any attempt to make it so is just going to reflect badly on those who are pushing the lie.
Yeah. Okay, final thing, and then I want to move on to these indictments and the briefings that you're seeing that my audience isn't. So Ghislaine Maxwell is basically they're plotting. He and Michael Wolff, Epstein, they're plotting how to blackmail Trump if he becomes president. It's been 10 years since 2015. They did nothing. They got nothing. The only thing we know for sure is that Jeffrey Epstein went down during the Trump years and killed himself or was suicided or unalived during the Trump years. And then the Bidens did absolutely nothing on this story until Trump won. And then suddenly they pull it out of the closet again.
Well, they're desperate. And again, this is the only thing they can find. They have nothing else. And so they're beside themselves. They thought they had a gold mine in Trump. But then again, they thought they could make something out of Russian collusion. Well, that was a lie, too. Everything they've hit Donald Trump with has been a lie. The Democrats don't know how to do anything but lie. And so, therefore, we've had accusations like the Kavanaugh hearings when they were accusing him of all kinds of sexual improprieties when he was younger. I mean, these things are, the Democrats can only obsess over something that is a scandal because they have no policy issue that is going to win the day with the American people. Certainly not, sex change operations with young children who have not reached the age of puberty is not going to appeal to any average normal parent.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Let's put a pin in that for a minute. I'm hearing from Alex Jones. I'm hearing from you. I'm hearing from many others. I'm reading in the news that there are grand juries that are kicking off in the state of Florida. Democrats are panicking because this isn't Washington, D.C., where they have Boasberg and Chutkin and others to run cover for them. They're going to have to go up against real judges in the state of Florida. What are you hearing about these juries? And then what are these briefings that you've been given?
Well, first of all, the attempt has been made to not have all the prosecutions come out of the Department of Justice in Washington. And what we've been talking about, I've been on this campaign about Todd Blanche, who is running the Department of Justice for Pam Bondi as Deputy Attorney General. Well, this has finally gotten to Donald Trump, and he's largely marginalized or started to marginalize Todd Blanche. So a lot of these investigations are going out to U.S. attorneys in offices outside of Washington to lead the investigation. Okay, so you see that Ed Martin is the pardon attorney. Well, Ed Martin has now gotten pardons for Giuliani and for the so-called Trump electors from 2020. He's also been reaching out to other offices to work, not just coming out of Washington, D.C. And so the grand juries that are calling Clapper on, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and others to come to the grand jury are in Florida, where Pam Bondi is. They're not in Washington, D.C., where you would get a jury that would exonerate anybody who hated Trump. Okay, so the Department of Justice is acting in a highly intelligent way, systematically, and they've really got 3 investigations going. Number one is the coup d'etat investigation against Obama and Hillary for making up the Russian collusion story to go after Donald Trump to remove him from office. Okay, number 2 is that they're definitely going after all of the people from Operation Crossfire Hurricane. So the coup d'etat, Crossfire Hurricane. Now you've got Clapper and all the rest coming in. They're going after mortgage fraud, Letitia James, and you've got now Adam Schiff involved, and pretty soon you're going to have Swalwell involved in a mortgage fraud scheme. And the mortgage fraud goes right into Act Blue. And so our whistleblower, Sean Taylor, has been responding even to me lately saying he can't talk anymore because he's now plugged into the federal prosecutorial system. I brought his case in to the Department of Justice and got a commitment from the Department of Justice that they would look at Act Blue. Now, Act Blue is what you're going to find out is that the Democratic Party has been operating a money laundering scheme. And the money laundering scheme is pervasive. It's all across it's huge, and involves the banks and involves the criminal activity in the border. I'm looking here. I pulled some reports. I'm going to start writing about this on American Thinker. But for instance, let me give you one of the articles that I have an article here from the Department of Justice, and they're reporting that on the bank money laundering that has been done by TD Bank. Okay, so first of all, TD Bank, this is a Reuters report, and it came up in October 10th, 2024. Reuters paid $3 billion in penalties to resolve the charges that it was laundering money from drug cartels. Prosecutors said the bank operated with inadequate guards against money laundering for nearly a decade, failing to act even when the staff flagged obvious cases of abuse, such as a customer making daily deposits of $1 million in cash. That's TD Bank. Okay, and then another report from the Department of Justice, and this is an official Department of Justice press release, again from October 2024. And it says for TD Bank from January 1, 2018 to April 12, 2024, did not file any money laundering reports, even though money laundering was going on extensively. So there was a total of 18.3 trillion in transactions in that 6-year period of time, in which the bank had no money laundering reports whatsoever. Okay, so now you've got money laundering coming in from the border after Obama and Biden opened the border with Honduras in 2014. We report this all on, we've got all the reports there on God's Five Stones about how this was done. And you can't run a drug operation or a fentanyl operation or a child sex trade operation, all of which came in on the border after it was opened by Obama and Biden, without a bank. Because you can't drive around a semi-truck with your $100 bills. The cash is a big problem in illegal activities. And you've got to get the cash into the bank, into a bank, so you can use it with credit cards and normal ways of dealing with business. So the banks are laundering the money. The CIA's in on it, actually running the drug trade, running the sex trade, and the money gets funneled into the Democratic Party through the Act Blue NGO structure. And the NGOs operate to get the money out of the bank. The way money laundering operates in a bank is simple. First of all, you've got illegal money in huge quantities, and you've got to get the bank to intake that. Okay, so the bank brings it in through check cashing facilities, all kinds of different ways, but they get that money into the bank. Then the bank has to get it accounted for so it disappears. So to get it out of the bank, they have to have a transaction. So the bank says to the head of Act Blue, you buy a house in Palo Alto, California for $1 million, and we'll make $30 million in mortgage loans to you, which are picked up by Lexus, which records all these transactions, but doesn't show up on the deed because it was not a mortgage loan. It was just passing of illegal money through border criminal activity to an NGO that was associated with the Democratic Party to run Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Okay, and so the Capital Research, this recent issue of the Capital Research, which is also doing the same thing I'm doing, it's following the money. They're finding a whole network of foundations, that were created maybe as long ago as the 1920s, but have been taken over by like the Century Foundation, which has $56 million in net assets to advance left of center policy, and it traces back to the Filene's department store in 1908 in Boston. Okay, and these foundations, the Kellogg Foundation, the Tides Foundation, Bill Gates's foundation, all these foundations have been funneling money to destroy America because their agenda is a globalist agenda. And they are transhumanists. They think that there's too many people they want to depopulate. And so therefore, what is going to come out now is not only the massive coup d'etat hatred of Donald Trump that was the Obama coup d'etat, Russian collusion, Operation Crossfire Hurricane, but a series of very top officials involved in treasonous activity. And then this money trail, which is going to show that we opened our borders to drugs, fentanyl, cocaine, homelessness in the streets, all the drug abuse in these homeless communities in San Francisco and other cities, the running of radical candidates like Mondami, who are a combination Muslim and Marxist. And we are at the first stage of it processing through a justice system that is now decentralized in order that Todd Blanches can't block everything in Washington, D.C.
Do you think that Todd needs to be removed? Because Alex Jones has been saying he doesn't think he is loyal to Trump.
I agree with Alex. In fact, I'm probably the one that started it.
Okay.
I've got briefed on that early on, and I started talking about it before Alex talked about it. And Alex picked up on it. Alex probably had the same information I had. And Peter Titkin was also out and talking about it as well. Did several interviews on it, which he mentioned a Todd Blanche by name. And there are a lot of still holdover Obama Biden bureaucrats sitting in place just waiting for the Trump second term to be over.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's the deep state. That's the permanent bureaucracy that Trump wants to get rid of, but is difficult to get rid of.
Well, he's getting rid of them. Now, there are some extreme measures under consideration. Okay. What's under consideration, number one, is, you see that Antifa is now taking over the streets, and the Democratic cities are now going violent, and mobs are attacking people, and these random knife attacks, etc. So Donald Trump is systematically beginning to send in the National Guard, and he'll ultimately invoke the Insurrection Act and have the troops take over the Democratic cities. Because you can't let this, if the Democratic cities, like Mondami comes on and says he's going to hire, social workers to do the 911 calls, and he's going to defund the police. You can't send two social workers out on a violent family dispute where husband and wife have knives at each other and are arguing. What's the social worker going to do? And the children are at stake and at risk. So the first thing is that Donald Trump's going to get control of the cities and say, if you just remove the cities from the United States would be completely a conservative country. This Free California movement, or this New California movement, there's only a few places in California, but they're the cities on the coast that are dominated by the Democrats. And there are so many of them that they overwhelm numbers in a general election, especially when the Democrats cheat. The Democrats don't seem to have any hesitation to cheat and to lie. Okay, so therefore, Trump will be able to use this military when he does, and he is writing a new executive order that he has said will be issued that will require voter ID and proof of citizenship. They'll get rid of these general mail-in ballot schemes and will require the computers to be gone out of voting. Now, the Democrats are not going to like that in the boards of election, but Trump could easily, under Article 2, Section, have his commander-in-chief say the military can run the election in 2026 according to the rules he sets forth. And by the way, the states can set the rules for the federal election of presidential year, but they have to comply with federal requirements. So Trump will impose the federal requirements.
Okay. I don't want to cut off your line of thinking, but did you see that Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is now saying Trump is preparing to rig the election through the Dominion voting machines.
I saw that.
Oh my gosh. She went from he's a loony bin that every court threw him out of to they're going to rig the election through Dominion voting machines.
Yeah, the Democrats swore those machines were honest. It was the most honest election we've ever had, they said.
Yes.
And now they're admitting that they wanted to say Trump's going to rig the election through the voting machines that they said were unriggable.
Yes. Oh my gosh. When I saw that, I was just like, wow, we've come full circle. What, as far as these briefings that you're seeing, is this just because I think there's been this anxiety that we're all waiting for Trump to do something big. He's done something big on the border. He's doing a lot of foreign stuff. Now people are ready for him to really focus on domestic issues.
Well, people want to see Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, duck walked out of the White House or out of their homes and arrested in a public scene. And they're so angry at what the Biden administration did with the auto pen and the dementia and everything else, and Obama and his smugness, thinking that Obama came on hip hop and hope and change and the Obama girl, all the songs they were writing about Obama, and yes he can, si se puede, and all the things they did for Obama. Well, now the people know who Obama is. Obama's persona non grata to most of the people in the country. But the Democrats are going to try to say, oh, well, let's extend Obamacare. Let's act like they really care about people. Let's extend Obamacare is a disaster. And we knew it was going to be a disaster when it was passed. And so therefore, all it's done is largely make medical health of the United States deteriorated, because you have big hospitals and big hospital groups and big doctor groups that have taken away the solar practitioner and made this an industrial medicine that we're getting today. One class fits all, and you've got your computers telling you what to do as a doctor when you're diagnosing an illness with a person. Your diagnostic tests and your computer tell you what to do. And if you violate from those rules, you might lose your job with the hospital group. And so therefore, we're seeing just below the surface, which I think is going to serve us in time for the 2026 election to be held legitimately. That's, I think, the next goal that Trump's on. He's got to make sure that election's held and that we don't lose Congress to Democrats who would spend the next 2 years impeaching Donald Trump like they did in the first term.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't going to spend time on Sliwa. He knew that Mamdani was most likely going to win. But if he loses the House and the Senate, he's going to become a lame duck. They'll impeach him on day one. It'll just completely ruin everything he's built. So I think he understands that. He's got a war chest of over $1 billion. They've got some great candidates. They're going to be removing some people and bringing in new people. And they want to have another national convention to really get Republicans excited so that they will get out and vote. I'm still very optimistic about 2026.
Oh, I am too. I'm very much so. I think the Democrats, if we held a fair election with only people who had the right to vote as citizens, half the Democrats in the House and Senate would be defeated. And I think we may get a surprise from the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court says race cannot be used as a determinant of voting. So all this gerrymandering to try to rig districts for the Democrats is going to come to an end. Democrats, have used, Martin Luther King said, give us an equal opportunity. He didn't say give us an advantage to compensate for the years in which we've been discriminated. That's where DEI came in. That's where, your preferences for jobs and for voting and other things comes in favor of minorities in order to compensate for the oppression. But that just discriminates against whites. It's just another race-based discrimination. So you can't have it be that way and be true to our principles. But of course, the Democrats took the opening of the door by Martin Luther King to be the wide open door towards insurrection and Marxism and social justice, Frankfurt School, equality, which has always been a trap for totalitarianism. It's right. Totalitarianism is right behind that. If you don't agree with this agenda, you're obviously so wrong, you don't deserve to have the right to speak.
Yeah. Okay, I've got a couple more questions, but I just want to plug your website. If people go to God's Five Stones, they can learn about all of the amazing work you're doing, the lawsuits you guys are working on, the research. If you guys can financially chip in and support Dr. Jerome Corsi, he and his team, they are taking the fight to the street that you and I want, but don't know what to do. They know what to do. They just need some help there. So go check out God's Five Stones, and Dr. Corsi, I'll put a direct link to that so people can find it very easily.
Thank you.
What was your reaction when President Trump came out and said, we've got to nuke the filibuster? It's something that has been hamstringing the Senate for a long time. We're not going to get anything done. Everything I propose, the Democrats make a giant stink of it. They get the media behind it. They get the intelligence groups behind it. And I'm not able to move as quickly as I want. What were your thoughts on him saying nuke the filibuster?
Well, I think he's right. I think right now it's become a dysfunctional tool that's used in order to be dysfunctional by the Democrats. And I think that we need to have the ability to have action taken on the floor, not postponed indefinitely and tabled. And the Democrats are just disruptive at this point. That is the book I wrote on the, neo-Marxism goes to cultural Maoism and it ends up in anarchy. And that's where we are right now. The Democratic Party has ended up in anarchy. Democratic Party is in the streets with Antifa. Democratic Party is in the streets with transgenderism, trying to get men into women's sports. They're in the universities trying to inculcate love of Hamas and anti-Semitism. Every bad idea that is dysfunctional, the Democrats have embraced, from climate change on, and hoisted it upon the world, knowing that it would cause chaos. And their goal was to have to destabilize society, destabilize traditional values, break up the nuclear family, reduce belief in God, and and then have their social revolution in which they could impose their totalitarian minority views upon all the rest of us, such that if we dared think something differently, we could go to prison.
Wow. So several members of the Democrat Party were asked last night if they were embarrassed of holding the military hostage, making them go multiple pay periods without pay, if holding hungry children hostage in order to embarrass Trump was worth it. Listen to what some of these had to say, because I was a little bit shocked.
Done worth it? Yeah, I think so. I hate it, but yeah, it was worth it. Definitely. We got people to pay attention to the fact that this is a traumatic, in many cases, life or death situation for people all over this country. Was the shutdown worth it?
I think it was, because I think the perception, we made it clear that this, not just the healthcare issue, but the whole issue. I think it was remarkable when the president tried to use SNAP as the punishment to force us to capitulate.
You see how they turn that around? Oh no, it was worth it to lock everybody down and put all these people out of work and make them worry. And then he tries to spin it that it was Trump that was using hungry children, when in fact it was them. There were single bills that came forward for the military, for SNAP. Trump went to the Supreme Court saying we need legal guidance. Ketanji Brown Jackson, the most Democrat person on the bench right now, said, you can't pay with money you don't have. You need to reopen the government. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the Democrats are famous for blaming you for what they're doing. So they come out and they accuse Trump of wanting to use SNAP in order to punish people and make the, to blame it on the Democrats. Well, Trump is obviously here doing what he needs to do to get the government shut down. He's required to do it. And so therefore, it's the Democrats who see that they can manipulate the food stamp crowd into a hate Trump modality by saying he took your food stamps away from you, when in fact the Democrats have been the ones who have caused this filibuster, kept the government open with the intent of creating a crisis that they could then blame on Trump to reduce his popularity. It's a calculated move, and it backfired because Schumer lost control of his own party. His own party came back and rebelled and said, we're done with this. You're not going to get all your little favorite programs like, the one I loved the best was male prostitutes in Africa. They wanted to spend millions of dollars. Senator Kennedy caught on to that. And have you people lost your minds? What are you doing with male prostitutes in Africa? You're funding it millions of dollars. And that's where the Democratic Party is. The Democratic Party has lost its moral compass, and it's gone from being a communist party to now being a treasonous revolutionary party that is based on anarchy. It's a nihilistic party, and nihilism does not sell in politics. And the midterms, I think, if we can eliminate the cheating, the Democrats are going to do very poorly. And I think Trump is aiming at making sure that there are going to be indictments. The illegals are going to be deported out of the country, and we're going to have a midterm in 2026 that is an honest election in which citizens vote, and these rules made to allow cheating are eliminated, including the universal mail-in ballot and the ubiquitous use of these machines.
Yeah. Okay, final question. I appreciate your time very much. So during the government shutdown, SNAP was used as a weapon, as a pawn, as a hostage. But one thing that came out is just how many illegal immigrants, millions and millions of illegals, getting more money than American citizens. I mean, my first thought is, why don't they go ahead and fund that when the government reopens? And then why don't they go ahead and unleash Doge to go get all those illegals out? I'm telling you that we'll see more people self-deport if they don't have government money and they don't have government food and they're not getting, fed better than American citizens.
And better medical care, and put up in luxury hotels to complain about the towels.
Yeah.
So look, the American people are tired of this. And I think that we've seen now with the random violence, New York City is not safe. New York City is going to lose its tax base, just like San Francisco has. The democratic cities are going to turn into hellholes. People are going to abandon them. And when that happens, we should not bail them out. We should basically, expose to the American people the bankruptcy of the democratic program, which is dependent upon producing an oppressed class that can be kept oppressed in order to have a poster child to blame the Republicans and capitalism for the problems the Democrats themselves have caused.
Yeah. Wow. Morally bankrupt and financially bankrupt. I read yesterday that they're still trying to figure out how to pay off Kamala Harris's debts. It's been a year. That nobody wants to donate to a loser. Nobody wants to donate to something that's already in the past. People are future looking, which is why I think Trump is doing so well. Dr. Corsi, if people want to catch your show online, where can I point them towards?
We do a podcast every weekday on CorsiNation.com. And then God's Five Stones, which we featured today, is where I'm doing my investigative work.
Okay. I will put those direct links so people can find you. Thank you so much for all you do. We'll have you on again in the future. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Always a pleasure. Thank you. God bless.